You are listening to Season 7 of the award-winning Christian Outdoors podcast with your host, Pete Rogers. Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to Christian Outdoors podcast. I'm your host, Pete Rogers. Today we have with us a gentleman who's also a podcaster, which we'll get to in just a minute. His name's Tom Walton. He's a Christ follower, husband, and passionate outdoorsman. He's also a veteran of the United States Marine Corps, and Tom is also a law enforcement officer and has been for 13 years and is currently a detective and a SWAT team member. He's also guided a few hunting and fishing trips in his home state of Idaho. Over the last 13 years, Tom has been involved in numerous critical and traumatic incidents. His law enforcement career has put a strain on his life and marriage, and thankfully, Tom turned to Christ and to the church for help. With he and his wife in a much healthier place mentally and spiritually, he has become passionate about helping his fellow first responders and veterans find peace and healing. Prayers for guidance led him to meet Nate and Becky Harder, the Ministries. Protectors Peak is a nonprofit organization located on the 220-acre Shilo Ranch in Calder, Idaho. Protectors Peak provides a place for our nation's heroes, servants, and their families to find rest, healing, and reconnection with God through these mountain retreats. Tom is excited to continue volunteering at Protectors Peak and has recently accepted a board position where he hopes to serve in his kingdom purpose. Tom Walton, thank you for joining me here on Christian Outdoors Podcast. Let's get this thing kicked off, Tom, by telling the audience just a little bit more about yourself in your own words.
Hey, thanks, Pete. Thank you for having me on the show. I am really excited. And like I was telling you before we hit the record button, I've been listening for some time now and appreciate your show. Love the devotionals too on Wednesdays. So
Thank you.
Appreciate that from you. So again, my name's Tom Walton. I grew up on the central coast of California in a smaller town on a few acres that my parents owned, riding horses, playing with my friends in the woods, doing a little bit of fishing, and joining the Marine Corps when I was 17 years old and was an infantry Marine. That sounds really exciting. And I did join in 2006. Things were really hot overseas in like Iraq, especially at that time. But my Marine Corps career, which I think is probably something to be thankful for, was pretty boring for being an infantry Marine. My deployment was really slow and not super exciting. Again, which is in hindsight, I was pretty bummed at the time. I wanted to get in the action, but in hindsight, it's probably a blessing. I think God was saving me for something down the road, which ended up being my law enforcement career. So I've been in law enforcement for 13 going on 14 years here shortly. And I started my career as a sheriff's deputy down in Riverside County, California, which is it's in Southern California, kind of east of LA, going out to the California-Arizona border. And so when you think of kind of that typical Southern California gangland, maybe you've seen it in the movies and stuff like that. That's kind of where I was working, some, what folks might call ghetto neighborhoods, the hood, a lot of gang activity and stuff like that. So that was a really exciting, pretty fun place to work. And I made up for a lot of that action. I didn't get in the Marine Corps with a lot of action there in Riverside County. While I was there, I was involved in a couple of officer-involved shootings. And at the time, didn't realize how they were affecting me. I kind of thought, hey, I'm Mr. Tough police officer, Marine Corps veteran. This is nothing that I can't handle, and so I kind of just carried on. I didn't ask for some time off or anything like that. As soon as I could get back to work and get, back with my partners on the street, that's what I was doing. Fast forward, my wife and I said, hey, we've had enough of California and the desert. My wife's from Washington State. That's where I met her. And we said, let's get back up to the green Pacific Northwest. So we decided to move to Idaho. We've been here for 8 years now. And since then, I've been with the Spokane County Sheriff's Office in Eastern Washington. So I'm lucky enough that I get to work in Washington and live in Idaho.
Okay, so you're right there on the border up there in the Panhandle part then.
That's correct. Yep. So I live in the Coeur d'Alene area, and Spokane is located just over the border. I mean, it's almost kind of the same community between Coeur d'Alene and Spokane, Washington.
Okay.
Yeah. So since I've been up here, I kind of thought when I made the move to work for the sheriff's office in Spokane, I was like, okay, probably going to be a podunk, slow little sheriff's office. And I expected it to not be as busy as I was in Riverside. And I was absolutely wrong, as I as I usually am. And since then have also been involved in a bunch of different critical incidents, to include where I myself was involved in 2 more officer involved shootings, and just meaning that I was the officer or the deputy that employed the deadly force. But that doesn't include critical incidents that I've been witness to, as far as on scene when other deputies have used deadly force, or been on scene where we've been, in 2022, for example, was kind of a highlight year, and not in the best way. Our SWAT team was involved in, I think we were 4 or 5 incidents where we took fire from bad guys. And so it was kind of a busy year. It's not the normal for us. We tend to go years between shootings on the SWAT team. And that year it seemed like it was one after another. And then there's all the other just trauma that's associated with the job. A lot of people, especially cops, and we tend to think like the shootings are the big things that trauma comes from, but it's also, the car accidents that we go to where there's mangled bodies, death investigations, especially involving children. One that always gets me is suicides. I don't like going to suicide investigations. They're incredibly sad and sometimes really gruesome as well. So there's day in and day out stress too, not just those kind of critical incidents, but just going to domestic violence call after domestic violence call. It's just like every day you're dealing with people's problems. And so I don't think there's a cop out there that's been working for a few years that hasn't felt that cumulative stress start building up. And we tend to not handle it very well. Rather than reaching to God, we tend to reach to ourselves. We tend to edge God out because we have egos. Stole that from a book that I'm reading called Leading Like Jesus. And that's exactly what I was doing. I was internalizing, looking to myself. I need to be strong. I need to put on a show. And it started to catch up. And it caught up in a couple of ways. It caught up with me, but it caught up with my wife. After my last incident where I was personally one that used deadly force, which was towards the end of 2022. And that was a SWAT call out in a long day. But that one is still kind of, I was telling you, that one's under some civil litigation still. So without giving a lot of details, at the end of that day, I was really, really happy that I survived and my friends survived. And it was such a crazy incident that I thought for sure somebody was going to get hurt. And unfortunately, the bad guy did. But fortunately, no innocent people or any officers were hurt. And after that, I remember thinking that sun rising that morning was very beautiful. And I was really glad that everyone was okay. And I got back to our station to kind of begin the process of the investigation and have a third party agency come in and start talking to everybody. One of the first things you do typically is try to call your wife, because she's going to wake up and see the news and see, and she knows I'm gone because she was there. I got called out of bed in the middle of the night to go to this incident. And so I called her. I was able to get a moment to myself to call my wife, and I kind of gave her what I always do. Hey, honey, just so you know, I'm going to be home a little extra late. If you see the news, I'm okay. Everybody's okay. I was just involved in a shooting. And, I was happy, not because we had shot somebody, but I was happy to just, like I said, be alive. And her voice, the tone in her voice was just pure exhaustion. Like she was just couldn't take this kind of news anymore, these kinds of phone calls. This was her 4th phone call for this reason. She's had to pick me up at the hospital because I've been in car wrecks, during which to drive to the hospital, she passed my wrecked police car on the side of the road. So I've put my wife through the ringer in this career. And I realized in that moment that I'm not the only one on this ride, that she's on this ride with me. She's been with me. We got married when I was in the Marine Corps. She's been with me this entire career in law enforcement. And that took the wind right out of my sails. And then over the next year or so, I think, I didn't know how to handle that. We did have a chaplain come over to the house and talk to her that helped amazingly. And I've since had the opportunity to thank those chaplains and talk to them about that. But I kind of circled the drain, for a lack of better terms, internally. I put on a good front. Nobody really at work really knew what was happening, besides maybe some of my closer friends, but I was definitely in a bad place. And, I think it's important to be vulnerable. So I'll share that while I was never suicidal, the thoughts of, man, my wife would be better without me, those kinds of thoughts started popping into my head. And when you couple that with kind of reliving or seeing scenes of particularly gunshot suicides, it got real really fast, and it scared me. I was losing my temper, and I didn't like it. And finally, I had to realize. I realized that something was going on, and we'd been going to church, but I had yet not really surrendered myself to Christ. And so there was, a moment where I realized between therapy sessions that, all right, the therapy's helping, but something is missing, and that was God. Mm. And so, turning to God, and we can get into that when we share the faith story more, but that's what really secured my turnaround and my well-being, especially being able to do that, share that journey in seeking Christ and closeness with God, with my wife, has been fantastic for our marriage. I mean, we are still a married couple, and we still have our moments, right? Just like everyone, but we sure know how to handle them a lot better. And it's been really awesome. And I think we both found a lot of healing. Part of that healing journey involved the outdoors. And I remember specifically one morning, and this is how it kind of comes together with the faith-based stuff and the outdoors, is one morning after one of my critical incidents, I was on administrative leave right after the incident. And my buddy and I, it happened to be a muzzleloader elk season for cow elk here in North Idaho. So I called my buddy and said, hey, dude, I got nothing going on, but nothing but free time for a couple of weeks. Do you want to go take the muzzleloaders for a walk? So he said, absolutely. And we headed down, and I remember we spent a weekend chasing elk, at least trying to. And we were sitting in this field. It was kind of like early December, watching the sunset, and it was kind of a nice afternoon for December. The sun felt a little bit warm and, kind of getting sleepy, and it was just really pretty. All the mountains had snow on them. And I was thinking to myself, in the last 3 days, how many times have I thought about this shooting that just happened? And the answer up until that point was 0, which was completely not normal. Normally, you just, whether you want to or not, you can't stop thinking about the incident. It just keeps popping into your head. And I kind of realized, there must be something to this outdoor thing. And maybe this is something that I need to learn more about and share with others. And that's how I kind of got involved in volunteering in the outdoor space with a couple of different organizations that weren't faith-based, great organizations though, and started taking veterans into the outdoors, fellow veterans, because a lot of these organizations were military-based type organizations. So one of which being one called Heroes Harvest, and another one which is the Backcountry Hunters and Anglers Armed Forces Initiative. So my buddy John White, who you guys got to hear and talk to on a previous episode here on this podcast, he and I started doing veteran turkey camps, every spring. And we've done 5 of those now for the last 5 years running, and we're planning on a 6th. And so this last year, we actually did a youth camp, which was amazing and a lot of fun. So this next coming year in 2026, we're going to do a youth hunt with Protectors Peak for first responders kids. So yeah, that's long-winded, but that's kind of how it all came to be. And
you said a few things I'd like to
Yeah.
address, and that is when you mentioned in your profession about car wrecks and things of that nature. And one of the things that I've learned in doing this show for the past 6 years and having a lot of law enforcement and EMTs and military people on the show, and they start talking about PTSD. And it seems like from the civilian world, this is just an observation, we only associate PTSD with military men and women who are returning from a conflict. We don't associate PTSD with EMTs, law enforcement, first responders, firemen, for some reason. And one of my sons was considering being a fireman. And one of the things that we talked about was you realize the main thing they do nowadays is work wrecks. And you're going to see things that you will never be able to get out of your mind. Right. And I just kind of want to educate the listener on that somewhat, Tom, if you don't mind, as to some of the, I don't want details. I don't want gore or any of that kind of stuff, but the fact that what you do day to day, while different from a military engagement, still has a lot of the same effects because as law enforcement, you're dealing with the worst of society every day. Am I right?
No, it's 100%. So, yeah, when it comes to any first responder, you nailed it. EMTs, firemen, they're going to go to a lot of wrecks. And then, if law enforcement isn't involved in some sort of use of force, deadly or not, there's usually injuries sustained by the suspect and or the officer. And who has to come treat those injuries? Who has to come to that scene, right? It's our fire paramedics. So they're often on scene for a lot of these incidents, even though their involvement might be different. And the car wrecks, I can tell you with, and I won't give the detail like you asked, but the car wrecks can be some of the most gruesome things that you ever see. I mean, very similar type injuries in for a lack of better terms or a way of describing it, to battlefield injuries. And so, and then there's all kinds of things that our paramedics and fire folks respond to, and that are traumatic. And trauma just comes in so many forms, and it impacts everybody differently. And then there's just like I said, the cumulative stress that's not necessarily from one specific incident, but it's just everything adding up, working night shift, working long hours, being away from home. And then on law enforcement, you have to add that to the aspect that when we go on shift, we put on bulletproof vests and we carry a gun, and we expect that somebody may want to do violence upon us. And so we tend to become hyper vigilant people. It's like deploying every single day to a conflict zone. Mm-hmm. And with all that evil that you're dealing with, you tend to become jaded. And I think it's really important. Something that I finally am starting to learn in these last few years is that you still have to remember to love, and the good exists in the world. And, when you're finding yourself jaded, it's time to maybe look for a different assignment to bring yourself back to reality. For me, that was being I took an assignment for 2 years as a school resource deputy in one of our rural farm community schools, and just dealing with good kids and good people, not in a bad setting, it really adjusted my focus back to like, all right, there's good people in this world. And we have to approach everything we do with some sort of love in our hearts. Because if we're not, that's a recipe for problems.
So I want to clarify that your use of jaded. I think I know what you mean, but if I'm somewhat confused, I have to assume that there's a listener that is as well. When you say that, do you mean that you become numb to the goodness of society, or you become numb to some of the things that you have to do? That's how I took it. Am I taking that correctly?
Yeah, you are. You're numb to that there are good things. You kind of just assume that everybody is lying to you, that there's no good left in the world because you're just seeing so much bad. And so you become bitter towards society.
Okay. All right. Well, that took it to a different level than where I had it, and I appreciate you clarifying that. But I'm going to make a really horrible analogy here, but it's the only thing coming to mind here, and it may connect. is when I talk to non-hunters and they ask, well, how can you kill these animals? Right. And you can use any kind of smart aleck response if you want to. Well, easy. You just put pressure on the trigger, or things like that. Or you can try to educate them and say, well, it's conservation. We enjoy the pursuit, but we also understand that it's necessary to protect the species, all that kind of stuff. But the reality is you're killing something, right? And if you're like most hunters, the first time or two, it's a lot of remorse because you realize you just took a life. At least it was for Pete. A lot of remorse. The first squirrel I ever killed at 14, I almost cried. I mean, I just out of sadness that I'd taken this life. And there came a point in my hunting career when I was getting numb to it. And I didn't like that. I didn't like that at all. I didn't like that I was feeling numb to taking another animal's life. And so I had an emotional reset. And in that I started looking at what I was doing through a different lens of I don't have to pull the trigger every time I have a chance to pull the trigger. Right. I started looking at it as I enjoy the pursuit. I enjoy being outdoors. I enjoy the hunting in different parts of the country and seeing different terrain and meeting different people and hunting different species. But I don't have to pull a trigger to enjoy it. There's still a lot of hunters that have to pull a trigger to enjoy it. If they don't kill something, then they feel like it was a waste of their time. My saying this is to caution people that are hunters, trappers, anglers, whatever, that are in a outdoor activity. It's a consumptive activity. We take animals. It's to say, caution yourself that you don't get numb to the fact that you are taking a life, and you need to be grateful for that sacrifice and to give thanks to God for the opportunity and all that. That I think when you become numb to what you're doing, oh, it's just a squirrel. Oh, it's just a dove. It's just a duck. It's just a insert animal here. Then you're missing a lot of the point of it. It's not about the taking of the animal. It's about experiencing God. It's about being in creation. It's about pursuing the animal on his terms. It's about the people you meet along the way and the places you get to see. As one, I think it was Gene Hill wrote one time, he was talking about fly fishing. He said the greatest thing about fly fishing is where you get to do it. And I love that image that he's given us, Tom. Is this? It's not about the catching the fish. It's about where you get to do it. You never see fly fishing in ugly places.
That's 100% true. And I think that's part of, the reason that the outdoors is healing, because it's typically gorgeous. It brings us closer to and reminds us of God's amazing creation. And there's obviously that Jesus went to the wilderness, right, to pray and to find rest and solace from the chaos that was his life. And I think that's part of the reason that we have wilderness on this planet, is for us to escape. Church and fellowship is first and foremost is critical, right? You can't not have church and fellowship and worship with fellow believers, but we also need to know that it's okay to embrace those moments where we go out and seek solitude or just some camaraderie with a couple of good friends in the wilderness, because that's where we're going to find some reset. And that's where Protector's Peak, I think, really comes in well, because we're fly fishing a lot at Protector's Peak, and we're doing it somewhere beautiful.
Before we get into that, because there's a couple of points I want to make about what you just said, I want to take a pause here for the people that support Christian Outdoors Podcast. Okay, Tom, you made a comment there that just was like bing, and I know that was really hokey what I just did right there. So forgive me, listeners, for that. But when you were talking about being in the wilderness with people, and that kind of speaks to what I was trying to say earlier. I think you just said it better, though, in that it's the people you meet, the people you share it with, right? I hunt a lot alone because my schedule and most of my hunting buddies work a typical 9 to 5. They're only off on weekends and occasional time during the week. I have a very flexible schedule. And so I can hunt a lot during the week. So I hunt a lot alone here locally. And I enjoy that solitude. I do. I enjoy the solitude. I enjoy the quiet. I enjoy not having to worry about, well, what's Chad doing right now? Has he seen anything? Is he heading back to camp early? Blah, blah, blah. All those. And now it's just, I'm on my own time, do what I want to do, stay as long as I want to stay, wander if I want to wander without worrying about messing up somebody else. It's just all kind of good things about alone. But when things that we enjoy are shared, the experience is magnified, I believe, in a really good way. Would you speak to that some?
Yeah, 100%. I'm the same exact way. Sometimes because of schedules, you can't always go hunt with friends. Sometimes I want to hunt by myself, and I kind of pick and choose experiences every year where I'm like, all right, this is going to be something I go do by myself because I need to just be alone with me and God and thinking and praying. And, so sometimes I'll do a couple of days of fishing by myself, a little backpacking trip or a hunt. But I think when I go with my friends, which I'm actually about to do, my table's covered in gear because I'm leaving Friday for a 10-day hunt with a really good couple of friends.
All right, where you go? What you hunting for?
We're going down to central Idaho to a river. I think most people probably figure it out of that, but we're going down to central
GPS coordinates now. Okay.
Yeah. Heading down to do a river hunt for mule deer and elk. Last year was really successful. That's where that mule deer came from right there.
Oh yeah. Nice.
And so we're going to go down and try to have some repeat success this year. But that shared camaraderie, to me, when I think about the hunt, it was great to come home with the trophy, but even when I look at the deer, I don't think of necessarily the moment I pulled the trigger. I think of when our boat broke down and I had to learn how to be a boat mechanic on the fly. And I think about, sitting around a warming fire in a snowstorm with my buddies laughing about the situation, or, having dinner at night when we're just talking, enjoying each other's company. Those kinds of memories are what really stand out. That and the vivid scenery that is Idaho, because we're blessed to be here. But those are the memories that stand out about the hunt. I don't want to go back because there's more mule deer down there. Well, I guess I do. That's silly to say. I wouldn't go if there were no mule deer, but
right.
I'm going back down there because of the place. I could find deer and elk in other parts of the state, but I'm going back down there because of the place and because I get to do it with the friends I get to do it with.
Right. Right. And that's well said. I mean, my only mule deer I took in Idaho in the Bear Lake area back in the late 90s, early 2000s. I don't remember where it is. I don't know where it is, but anyway, and that's my only time being in Idaho. But the point is, I'm going to tag on what you said. When I think about that hunt, I don't think about the time I killed the deer. I think about being in this 20-foot old army tent with two guys that smoked like a chimney, and I'm dying of black lung, right? Because the whole tent is full of smoke, and I'm just, I think of that, and I think of rekindled friendships that and memories that were made on that hunt, because both of them are deceased now. And so when I think about them, that's the first place I go to is that tent and sitting around the campfire and the stories we shared and opening up to one another. And when the memory goes to me taking the mule deer, it's such a small part of the entire trip. Now I'm thrilled that I got me a decent mule deer, right? Thrilled that I did. But as you said, it's about where we were and the people I was with, and the fact that we got to share so intimately around the campfire, hunting with them, learning with them. And that's really what it's about. And I think to a lot of the non-hunters, they don't understand that. They don't understand that it's for many, many, many of the hunters and anglers, it's not about the kill or the catch. It's about the experience. And that's really hard to describe to people. Don't you think, Tom?
Absolutely. It's the places and the people. And
Yeah.
Yep. It's just
Yeah.
this, I mean, every hunting trip I've gone on with people, and I can tell you, I find a lot less success than I do success. I mean, if I was in it just to go, just because I wanted to kill elk and deer, and I wouldn't be hunting still, because I don't kill a lot of elk or a lot of deer on a regular basis.
Yeah. Well, as I tell people, I'm an elk repellent. Okay. I mean, I am just either I'm just really a bad elk hunter, or they know I'm there. They've already sent the memo out before I arrive in state. And I am just terrible. To tell you how bad it is, I've been on I always go self-guided public land. Okay. Number one. So, I have not seen a legal elk on any elk hunt I've been on. That's how bad it's been. Now, some of that, the listeners have heard this. You probably heard this before, as I've been going to different places every time, and you don't learn the place, and you can't control the weather. Right. And for a lot, this really tags into what we were saying, is that for a lot of hunters, they see that as a complete failure and just a wasted trip. I see it as, man, we had a great time. I got to see things that I've never seen before. And I remember one time, I got to share this story real quick, because it was a cool story. We were in north central Colorado. I can't remember the name of the town we were by. We went through Steamboat Springs, but it wasn't near theirs. But anyway, it was up in that area. And we were camped at about 9,300 feet. And I took the side-by-side and went up the Forest Service road to the top of the mountain to scout. I said, this is where I'm going to hunt in the morning. So I saw a lot of elk signs. I went up there before daylight. It was cold. I'm a South Carolina dude. I am not used to cold. I had on almost everything I brought with me. It was, and the wind was howling. You know how the wind blows high at high elevation. Anyway, I found this tree, a spruce tree, fir tree. I don't know. It was a green tree with the limbs go all the way to the ground. I crawled up under it just to sit and wait for daylight. And I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, I may be the first person that ever sat under this tree out here in the middle of stuff. And I'm just absorbing that and watching the sunrise. I'm listening real hard. All you can hear is the wind blowing, and it's just so peaceful, so beautiful. And the sun comes up, and I'm looking around, and I just kind of looking around me at the ground here. If you're watching me on YouTube, you see I'm looking at the ground here. And there was a 4 or 5 old tin cans that another hunter decades before had left there, back when everything only came in cans. It was like they're only about 2 inches tall and big around, like a tuna fish can, something like that size, but there was like 5 or 6. I said, well, I don't guess I was the first person to ever sit here. I just started laughing at the fact that there's really nowhere I guess there's places you can go, but the age of them told me that this must be a good place because somebody else sat here. And it was just nostalgic that, wow, I wonder who this person was that sat here and enjoyed this same sunrise at this same place. And it was just one of those moments that just was like connected me with the ancestors of the hunters and trappers who lived in the West at the time. It was just a moment for me. I know for somebody listening, it's like, why'd you even bother that, Pete? But I wanted to share that. And it's, again, didn't see a single elk the whole trip, but man, did I have a good time. I had a great time, and it was exhausting, little sleep, lots of miles, lots of, good stories. And, of the 5 of us, none of us killed an elk, and we hunted in a lot of different places in that area. And these guys had been successful in that same area. I think, again, this is why Pete's the elk repellent. For like 5-6 years in a row, they had taken 2 or 3 elk. They bring Pete along, and nobody sees elk.
I feel your pain, man.
Yeah. So I don't expect to get many elk invitations after me saying that, right?
Yeah, I feel your pain. Well, I think the fact that you're in it for the experience is the key part, and the little bit of guiding that I've done. I kind of stole this from Billy Moles, if you know who he is.
I had him on the show.
Oh yeah, I don't know if I have to go back through the archives and see if I can find that one, because I absolutely love talking to Billy. He's been kind enough to take a phone call from me, and I love listening to everything he says. And one of the things that he said that I took, because the reason I even got to know Billy's stuff is because when I got into guiding a little bit, this old outfitter said you need to go to guide school, and guide school was to him was just watch how Billy Moles does everything. Yeah. And so Billy tells his clients and says this all the time: if you're thinking about coming to Alaska, and I'll just preface this to, if you're thinking about coming out west, wait to do it until you're ready to not come home with an animal. If you can come out west and enjoy what it is to be here, what it is to be in these mountains, regardless of the state that you go to, and you can be satisfied with the experience, then you're ready to spend the time and money, whether you go guided or do it yourself, to come out here and do it. And then when you get it, if and when you get an animal, it's just going to make it that much sweeter. But this country has so much to offer, and it's not just animals. So yes,
very, very well said. And it does. And it very much does. And it goes back to my moose that I took in Alaska, public land, unguided, with the same buddies I was in Idaho with, actually. And the 3 weeks I was there, I seldom think of the actual taking the moose. I think of blueberries as far as you can see. I think of camping at the base of a glacier. That's the things I think of, right? And seeing grizzly bear tracks on top of your boot tracks. Now that'll make your hair stand up right there.
Absolutely.
That'll make your hair stand up.
Yeah, we went to Alaska a few years ago on a caribou hunt with one of the organizations I had been volunteering with. And the first morning it snowed in August, of course, because it's above the Arctic Circle. And when we were walking along, we were following the tracks of a grizzly bear. And later that day, the fella I was hunting with, we both doubled up on caribou. And I just remember thinking, gosh, man, like, this is really cool, but I feel like that grizzly could be hiding over the next hump. And you can't, it just makes the hair on the back of your neck stand up. We had to pack it out in 2 loads, and we went back the next day to get the rest of it. That grizzly had found my meat cache. He actually helped himself to about half of one of my hindquarters, but so and that part of it is, to me, more, I think about that more than the shooting of the caribou. It's just that all the wildlife, the muskox, and everything you get to see, and just being in that country is unbelievable.
Yeah, I'd love to do a muskox hunt. I would. I'm thinking about Greenland. I've heard some good things about the Greenland muskox, and it's more affordable than the Northwest Territories muskox. And you can do it in the summertime when it's not.
That would be, when it's not
400 below zero. I think a muskox hunt would be a cool hunt. We're fortunate here at Christian Outdoors to have quality companies supporting our mission, and Mueller Optics is a perfect example of this. Since 2007, Mueller Optics has had one mission: to bring the passion of hunting and shooting to everyone. Mueller Optics' aim is to offer top-tier rifle scopes that won't break your budget, making quality optics more attainable for enthusiasts like us. Now, I started using Mueller Optics scopes last season. Not only was I impressed with the cost of these scopes, but the quality of the glass and the ease of operation was as good or better than other brands costing 3, 4, 5 times as much as the Mueller Optics scopes do. Whether you're building the rifle for the hunt of a lifetime, an ultimate whitetail setup, or trying to make your 22 perfect for small game hunting and plinking, Mueller Optics has a scope for you that will outperform any other scope in its price point. And to further help Christian Outdoors, if you use promo code COP for Christian Outdoor Podcast, COP35 at checkout, you will save 35% on your purchase. Just go to MuellerOptics.com to find out more. So back to the show. Tom Walton here with us. And Tom, you mentioned early in your opening monologue, which was wonderful, about how, going through some of these traumatic experiences that you went through was leading you down a bad path. But once you and your wife started going to church and started on a direction towards relationship with Christ, that all changed. Do you mind sharing that?
Absolutely. So, and I'll tie Protectors Peak into this because I feel like I've neglected them a little bit, and they're
Oh,
like the
sure.
main reason I'm here.
Absolutely.
But and they're a big part of this, especially Nate. But um, I grew up going. Well, I didn't necessarily grow up fully, but as a young kid in middle school, I started going to church without my parents. Not knocking on them; they're wonderful human beings, and both are believers. But um, you know, their faith story was different timing and later than when I wanted to go to church. So I started going to church when I was in middle school and early high school, and I got, I got saved. I accepted Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior, and baptized, and it was great. The whole family came, and I'll never forget it. It was an important moment in my life. However, like I think I've heard so many of your guests say, late teenage years and 20s took over, and I backslid for sure. Always aware that God was there, paying attention, but I was not paying attention to God. Um, again, alpha type A personality. I was thinking could do it all on my own. I don't need anybody's help. So when all this caught up with me, uh, you know, I would go to the therapy, which was great. And, if you're somebody that's in need of some help for whatever you're experiencing in life, therapy is beneficial when you find the right therapist. But um, it wasn't until I turned to Jesus and actually surrendered, and that was harder said than done. My wife and I were going to church for a couple of years, and just a side note on finding the church, just to be an example of how God works. I'll tell you this quick story. Um, one day I was driving home from work, and I see this fella. He's on the side of the road with a roadkill white-tailed doe, and I'm not gonna lie, I was kind of thinking like, I wonder if he hit that deer. I hope he's okay. If he is, I wonder if I can run home. I wasn't far from home. I'd go get my pickup truck and grab that deer because the freezer was looking a little empty late in like early fall. I pulled over, and this fella Zach was looking at this deer, and I said, "Hey, are you all right? Did you hit this deer?" And I'm in my full uniform, marked patrol car. So no, I'm okay. Thanks for stopping. And, I was like, I'm thinking about getting into hunting, and I figured maybe I could dress this deer out for practice and take it home. So that's a really good idea. He's like, but I don't know what I'm doing. So I offered him some help. I said, well, I got a couple of sharp knives because I've got knives everywhere because I'm just one of those guys. So I'd be happy to help you. So I helped him on the side of the road, rolled up my uniform sleeves, and we took what we could salvage off the deer and loaded it in the back of his truck. And we got to talking. Turns out he was also in the Marine Corps, and we exchanged numbers. Said, yeah, if anything I can do to help you with getting into hunting, let me know. And I told him about the organizations I volunteered with, and we parted ways. Oh, he sends me a text message, I don't know how many months later, about an event at his church called Beast Feast. This is at Real Life Ministries in Post Falls, Idaho. And it's just it's a dinner where typically men, women are definitely welcome, but it's usually a large group of men show up. They've got the whole auditorium at this church adorned with antlers, and it's just very outdoorsy. There's raffles for guns and everything. So all the things to attract hunters to a church,
Yeah.
they put in
Yeah.
there.
I
So
speak at a lot of those type events. I'm very familiar with them. Yeah.
it was great, and he invited me to go, and I said, well, why not? I'm not against church, and I'm not against uh, hanging out with folks. So I attended, and to make the long story short, by the time I left that, I knew I wanted to go to church there. I had heard the lead pastor, Jim Putnam, talk, and he convicted me that about hunting being an idol, and turning towards God. And so I went home. I said, honey, I know we've been looking for a church. I think we need to go to this one. And so we slowly started integrating into this church. And, the point being, I still wasn't doing great. And this was kind of as things were happening at work that were causing some of my, my issues. And eventually I got to a point where I realized nothing was working, and in church, just going to church on Sunday and then going about the rest of your life for the rest of the 6 days of the week, that's not enough to make your life better. I finally had to, after a thorough beating, say, God, I get it. I can't do this on my own. Um, I'm hearing your voice, I'm hearing your messages, and I need to surrender myself to you. I need to go with, I need to follow your plan, not my plan. And please just show me what you want me to do. How do I do this? Well, no sooner do I pray for that than at some point in the near future afterwards, I met Nate and Becky Harder, the founders of Protectors Peak, at a wellness conference for law enforcement and first responders here in Coeur d'Alene. And I was listening to all these speakers at the conference talk. And I'd already been looking for something in the outdoor space that involved law enforcement that I could volunteer with. And one of the things that I noticed at this wellness conference, they're talking about all these treatments and, chemical things like ketamine, which I'm not saying is good or bad. That's up to the individual to make a decision on. But, ketamine treatments, EMDR, which is very effective, but therapy, and you're hearing all these stories. And every once in a while, somebody sharing a story like I'm sharing mine with you would say, oh, yeah, and my faith played a big part of it. And then they'd move on. And I was just like, man, the one thing that's missing in this conference is Jesus. And what I had been experiencing over the prior few months was you can go to all the therapy and you can get a little bit better, but without surrendering, true surrender to Jesus and his plan for your life, which is better than any plan you're ever going to come up with, you just don't know it yet, is the missing link. And when I met Nate, I said, man, you guys are faith-based, you do it law enforcement, you're on the outdoor space, like where do I sign up to help? And we both said, yep, the one thing missing in all of this is Jesus. And that's how Nate and I started talking. He invited my wife and I out, because this is the kind of people they are, to come to their retreat, which is about a 2-hour drive from my house. It's out on the St. Joe River. It's beautiful. And so we went out in March. It's still kind of cold and snowy, and we spent a night with them. They treated us just like they would treat any retreat guest. And that's when I kind of understood the power of what they're doing, the power of serving servants. And my wife and I both left, and we gotta do something with Protectors Peak. And that's kind of how we got involved with Protectors Peak. My wife has gone to, they have Wives of Law Enforcement retreat. She went, very powerful for her. She's in healing. She's met some great women who are helping her on her faith journey. And then I went to the Men of Law Enforcement retreat, same experience. We lost this summer, we lost one of our supervisors, Sergeant Kinsales, was killed on duty. And a lot of guys have been struggling, guys and gals struggling in our agency with the loss of Ken. And I was able to take 2 of the folks that were impacted by that loss with me to the retreat, and to watch God work in their lives is amazing. To watch what the Holy Spirit is doing when we do our devotionals is amazing. And so I've been going back to Protectors Peak and taking people fly fishing is kind of the niche that I found myself in. But eventually my volunteering led to Nate saying, hey, I think you're on fire for the Lord right now, and we want to take advantage of that. And he asked me if I'd accept a board position,
Nice.
to which I did. Yeah. So,
okay. All right. So while we're on Protectors Peak, tell the listeners, you told us what it is and where it is, but tell us how they can, if they want to participate as a retreat attendee or a volunteer, how they would go about doing that.
Absolutely. So you just go to protectorspeak.com.
Yep.
Right now,
so I'm gonna look over here while you're doing.
The 2026 retreat dates will probably post about mid next month. I would advise anybody that's interested in maybe attending one of these retreats to get on there and start checking, maybe sign up for the email list too, so you can get the warning, but they fill up pretty quick. One thing that Nate and Becky feel called to do this year is more of our marriage retreats. The marriage retreats, seem to be a really huge need, especially in the first responder world, as marriages tend to suffer greatly because nobody's focus is on God. And the marriage retreats have been very powerful. So I think there's going to be more of those this summer, this retreat season. I know they're looking at doing a winter retreat season, which would be pretty fun because it is really beautiful here in the winter too. The fishing might be different, but it is a beautiful place to be in the winter, and just being in snowy mountains is healing. But yeah, go to the website. You would sign up. They do ask.
I don't see on the website events or a place to sign up or what's coming forward or even past ones. Am I overlooking?
Yeah. Well, so they do have, they probably still have I was just looking a little bit ago, and I think we still have the 2025 events page, which is obviously we're out of retreat season as of now.
Well, I don't see it. So tell me where to go, because I would be the same, so we can also help the listeners.
Got it right here. If I can get my daggone phone to open. All right. So if you're at Protectors Peak website, and hopefully the mobile app is, let's see here. One thing you could do is just go to the facts page, and it'll kind of answer a lot of questions like, when do Protectors Peak retreats begin and end? What do you do? Where are we located? Accommodations, cost.
Yeah.
What I need to bring and stuff like that. If you go to the home, there are a couple of things if you scroll along that provide more information. Let's see here. And then also you can go to the contact page and write a message to, and usually when I logged onto the website, or didn't log on, but when I clicked on the website this morning for the first time, it offered me an immediate pop-up for the email list. And right now I would just suggest signing up for that, and then checking back about middle of the month, and just keep checking back through the end of November for the posted events for 2026, just because we're still working on the schedule for all of that.
Okay. And that makes sense. Here's a question about the retreats. Are they over a weekend? Are they a week long? Are they 4 days, 3 days, 1 day? I assume different retreats have different time schedules, but just kind of give us an idea.
Absolutely. So right now, all of our retreats, marriage and the individual men's or women's retreats, of which we have first responder retreats for law enforcement, fire service. We do veterans retreats, military retreats. So we've had active duty military come out, veterans, and various different first responders. But all the retreats are Sunday through Thursday. And the reason that we do that is because the St. Joe River is a very, very, very popular place for locals and non-locals to come recreate in the summertime, and it gets pretty busy. So we kind of avoid the weekend crowd by having the retreat happen during the week. And it just allows for a little bit more peaceful, relaxing, especially on the river experience part of things, really helps out. So Sunday through Thursday, you would arrive Sunday night, and then leave, Thursday mid-morning, afternoon, and then Nate and Becky turn over the lodge and get ready to do the next week's retreat. The daily kind of outline of the retreat is it is faith-based. So there's 2 devotionals every day, and I want to make this kind of clear too. I think most of your listeners are probably going to be like, that's great. But if there's anybody that's kind of on edge, I don't know if I want to be participating in devotionals. I don't want to be forced to do anything. No one's forcing you to do anything here. This is voluntary, right? So we do breakfast in the morning, and then we'll do a devotional after breakfast. If you, for whatever reason, don't feel like you want to participate in the devotional at that moment, that's fine. You can go for a hike by yourself. You can, just take that time to do what you need to do. And hopefully we'll see you at the evening devotional, which we do after dinner.
So you're not forced to it, but it's available.
Yep. Yeah. So I've not seen anybody not do it, but I think it's kind of important because I had a friend, one of my buddies that went with me. He's like, I don't know. His response was to the faith-based part of it was, I don't know how I feel about all of this. He's like, the woods is my church. And when I'm out there, I pray to my parents. His parents have passed away the last, a few years ago. And so he's very kind of resistant. After he did end up participating, at least in the fact that he sat there and listened to the devotionals during the retreat. And then he had some one-on-one conversations with Nate, myself. And at the end of the retreat, his mind was changed essentially on the importance of this kind of a thing. And when I reached out to him a few weeks later and said, hey, would you like to get together? Maybe we can go fishing with a few other dudes and have some devotionals on our own and talk about God. And he said, that's something I think I'd really enjoy. All right. So there's a seed that's been planted. So I would encourage people, if you don't want to talk, at least sit through the devotional and listen. But
right.
So it's a breakfast devotional, and then we release you to do an activity. And the activity is kind of whatever you want to do. You can go hiking. We always encourage people to at least take some time to go spend a little bit of time alone and reflect in prayer. But you can go hiking. You can take a nap. The lodge is comfortable and beautiful. You can read a book on the couch. You can read a book outside. You can sit and drink coffee all day. Or you can usually join myself or someone else, and we'll take you fishing. There's kayaks and all kinds of things like that. So then we do lunch, and then we break for an afternoon retreat or activity, the same kind of things. And then we'll have dinner. And then after dinner, we'll do another devotional. And then you're released to do whatever you want for the evening. And at least once a retreat, weather permitting, we'll do what we call a sunset devotional. And that's where we drive up to about 7,000 feet, 7,000 feet on and some side-by-sides up on the mountain. And we'll do a sunset devotional on top of a mountain. And that is just a beautiful thing. And then usually once a retreat, we will do a hike. It's just short, but steep hike to a cross on the property. And we'll do a little devotional at the cross as well. So,
okay. When you said the word steep, I started sweating already.
Steep. Yep. And it's one of Nate's favorite things to talk about, because he says, this is a time where we remember, because every once in a while you'll catch a glimpse of the cross when we're walking up. So this is a time where you embrace the suck, as he likes to say. Encourage each other, keep your eye on the cross, and just keep putting one foot in front of the other, right? And that's just a metaphor for life. Our spiritual journey is not necessarily an easy one. God says that, we might be walking through fire, and he's going to walk through fire with us, but he never says we're not going to get burned along the way. Right. So he'll get us through it, but it's not going to always be pain free. And that's part of being a faithful person. Right. So,
right. Man, that's good stuff. That really is. That's good stuff. I like that. Embrace the suck. And I've also heard, hunters have to be comfortable being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
If you're not comfortable being uncomfortable, then you'll never be a good, outdoorsman.
No,
you can be scrapping any of it. You just got to be.
Tell you. Yeah, I can tell you, I'm actually nervous about the forecast. Is wet, snowy, cold for my trip. So I'm getting myself mentally prepared to embrace some suck.
Really.
So,
all right. Well, Tom, this has been a great conversation. It really has. So tell the listeners, we've already told them that it is protectorspeak.com, but let's tell them a little bit about, you have a new podcast as well. So let's take the last few minutes of the show, tell the people about your podcast and where it can be found and the kind of things that you discuss also.
Yeah, absolutely. And the last note I do feel like I want to share on Protectors Peak is just the cost, because I did mention cost. And real quick, there's a $50 application, or application fee or registration fee. And that's Protectors Peak doesn't, while we do need to fundraise, we're a 501c3 nonprofit ministry. The $50 isn't necessarily something we do for the fundraising. It's just kind of an accountability thing. Just we have so many first responders and veterans around the country that need this service that we often have to turn people away. So when you book a spot, we want you to show up to it. So that $50 is our hope that that'll motivate you to show up and participate, because we want you to come. We want you to be there. And if you had to cancel, we just want you to do it early so we can get somebody else in there, because we are right now, unfortunately, turning away people that need our help. And so we're working on several things to expand our capacity to take on more people, to include looking at maybe opening up another version of Protector's Peak in the Southeast somewhere. But
okay. Well, that's true. When you got skin in the game, you're more likely to show up.
Yeah. So that's why there's going to be a $50 registration fee, but that $50 gets your food, your lodging, and everything else. The only thing you're going to have to do is get yourself there. And if you have to fly, you're going to buy your plane tickets and stuff like that. But it's huge, and we're working on it. As far as what I got going on, absolutely. So I have a new podcast called the Pursuing Freedom Outdoors Podcast, and we do essentially what we're doing right now, where we just like to share in stories from real hunters and anglers and veterans and first responders. Very service-based podcast, but I often have people that aren't veterans on the podcast. So this is for everybody. The main goal is that we inspire people to get out and pursue their passions, pursue their dreams in the outdoors or whatever they're doing. One of the things I like to talk to people about is entrepreneurship. So when people start businesses and are successful, just because a lot of times cops and military folks, especially like me, I was an infantry Marine. I'm in law enforcement. I'm a SWAT guy. I don't do a lot of other things. I never went to wood shop. I never went to metal shop. I'm not a mechanic, which made fixing that boat on the fly, like I told you about, really interesting. I had to learn how to take a carburetor apart for the first time on the river.
That's fun.
But I felt stuck, and I'm not the only one that feels that way. You feel like this is the only thing I can do. I hope nothing happens to it. I hope I don't get fired. I hope I don't get injured. I hope I don't get laid off. Whatever it may be that could end your career suddenly, it's a big fear. And I want people to realize that you have a lot more talent than you realize. You can go out and do a lot of things. So that's kind of one of the things that I'm motivated to do as well, is just inspire people to get out and try new things and push their limits. Like taking a California guy that grew up ditching class to go to the beach with his girlfriend can be a hunting and fishing guide in Idaho. So
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Tom Walton, good stuff, buddy. Thank you for joining me here on Christian Outdoors.
Hey, Pete, thank you so much for having me on. This is a great honor and a blessing to spend time with you this morning. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. It's very kind of you to say that.